Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Pravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Bhadram Karne Vishriyama Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatraha Sthiraya Rangai Stushtuvalum Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti Na Indro Vridhashravaha Swasti Na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti Nastaksho Arishtanemihi Swasti No Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Do we have Amini this morning?
No.
No. Well, I hope I'm saying the right thing. But for those of you who will be coming to the potluck this Saturday from 6 to 10, vegetarian and vegan food, Amini and Arjun and their baby Adi will come early because they've got a 4-month-old baby. And she will be singing Guru Stotram out of respect for my teacher. So she says, do you have a tune that you want me to do? And I said, you choose. So it's going to be beautiful. So if you haven't heard any traditional Hindustani music, come. And I think we are now still in the first chapter, the Agama Prakarana, and we're starting with the 8th mantra. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Not the 8th karika, but the 8th mantra.
Should I begin?
Mm-hmm.
So, Yamatmadhya Kshara Monkaro Timatram Pada Matra Matrascha Pada Akara Ukaro Makara Iti. The same Atman is again Om from the point of view of the syllables. The Om with parts is viewed from the standpoint of its sounds or letters. The quarters are the letters Moray, and the letters are the quarters. The letters here are U, and Ma.
Yes. So now he's continuing with what we would call an exegesis, going into what is the meaning of the letters, which are also the syllables. Now, normally, when we see Om written, it looks kind of like a 3, then there's a little loopy goody, and then there's a little half moony thing with a dot. This is a shorthand form. The 3 is part of the letter A. The little curly Q loop is the U. And the little half moon with the dot is what's called an anuswara. And it is the sound M, shorthand. It can also be written, I'm doing this backwards, isn't that clever? Like a 3, a line, and a line at the top. I've forgotten how you do the U.
It's the 3.
What?
The 3 by itself, or like the thing at the bottom.
They do U just at the bottom. Yeah, one of those. No, I guess it would be this one. And then, how do I do them backwards? I guess like this. Did I do it right?
You did right.
Yeah, and then a Holland. Yeah, okay. So that's U, and M. You can separate it out. So now he's going to go into the 3 letters. That's weird to write Sanskrit backwards. So going on.
Jagari tasthano vaishvara narokara prathama matropte radimatvad vapnoti ha vai sarvan kamanadischa bhavati ya evam veda. He who is Vaishvanara, having for his sphere of activity the waking state is the first letter of Om, on account of its all-pervasiveness, or on account of being the first. These two are the common features in both. One who knows this surely attains the fulfillment of all his desires and becomes the first or the foremost among all.
So one of the things you find throughout the Upanishads are rishis were great salespeople. Who here works in sales? Okay. So I was a terrible salesman. I worked in a retail store selling musical instruments, and another time selling records, back when you had vinyl records. But I was once told that a good salesperson always puts the customer in touch with the benefits of the product. Is that still true?
Very much.
Yeah. So, the rishis know how to do this. So what is it saying? So those of you who may have had children or may have siblings who've gotten children or relatives, that's the first sound a baby makes. It's like the basic vowel sound that pervades all of our speech. And in Sanskrit, every letter has the vowel A inherent in it. So if you write a consonant, let's say you write a K, the K sound, you don't have to put an A after it if you want to spell karma. The A is inherent. So it pervades all of the speech. It's the same in Hindi, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's the first sound, it's the all-pervading sound, and here he's comparing it with the waking state. And the idea here is if a person really understands the laws of the waking state world, then you'll get what you want in this world. A lot of us, it's amazing what we don't know. It's a young man, I'm working with a young man, he's 55. Anyway, has a good job, he's a nurse. But there's a basic law of the waking state reality that he has yet to internalize. If you spend more money than you're making, you're going to be in trouble. It's amazing how many people don't know this. Basic laws. Don't lie, cheat, and steal. Why? There's no God who's going to send you to hell. But the laws of karma, what you put out's going to come back to you. I have another young man I'm working with. And, he's had a long history of being a little bit of larceny in his soul, and sticky fingers and taking things that don't belong to him and stuff like that. He doesn't do it anymore. But he just got back from a trip to India and he got really sick at the end of his trip. And he ended up having to go to the hospital, and he was there with his 87-year-old father, and he ended up having to leave his suitcase in the airport. Clothes and all the gifts he'd gotten for people back home. It's gone. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. So these are simple waking state reality laws. If you lie to people, guess what's going to happen?
They'll lie to you.
Yeah. If you take things that don't belong to you, guess what's going to happen? Do you get away with it? No. Be taken back from you. Now, karma is not always instantaneous. So what we learn in the world, we learn waking state laws, like if you're single pointed and you suit up and show up for work. Who here has managed people? Okay. What happens when the people you manage chronically show up late for work?
You fire them eventually.
Anybody here have difficulty showing up on time? Another law of the waking state world. Become a man or woman of your word. We don't cover it in this scripture too much. But for example, those of us who were in Yoga Vasishta on Thursday, we spent a lot of time talking about sankalpa, our intention, our wish, our will, our desires to accomplish things in this world. One of the most important things for us to do is show up with integrity. When you say you're going to do something, do it. If you're going to meet somebody at 4 o'clock, you show up at 4. If you say you're going to pay a bill before such and such a date, you do it. These are things that make the world work. People who are not people of their word, who break their word, who break contracts, eventually things start to get really messy. Now, we can look at various people who are very powerful, who may have had inherited wealth or have other skills. and we see them acting with a lack of integrity. But in time, people quit trusting them. People quit trusting them. So, if you pay attention to this waking state world, another good paradigm. We're making our way through chapter 3 of Gita, the chapter on karma yoga. If we learn to practice karma yoga, act in the world, how? According to your own inherent nature. You have a right to do what you love in a spirit of selfless service, renouncing our attachment to the fruits of action and our identification with the sense of agency, you have a better chance of being successful in this world, and even more importantly, making an important contribution in this world. You become part of a solution to a peaceful, abundant, prosperous world rather than part of the problem. So all of this is implied. So he's not saying you just sit in meditation and go, It doesn't mean that. I'm going to get what I want. No, it doesn't mean that. It means a deep penetration into the physical laws and metaphysical laws that govern the waking state reality. Now, there's a deeper meaning to this. So let's say I want a BMW. How am I going to feel when I get the BMW? Happy. I want a job at such and such company. How am I going to feel when I get that job? Happy. Ooh, I want a bigger house. How am I going to feel when I get the bigger house? Happy. Yoga says, why don't you get rid of the middleman and just go for the happiness? So that's the deeper meaning of this. So when the scriptures say you do such and such and so, and all your desires will be fulfilled, what the deeper meaning is, you have found what it is that truly satisfies the human heart. Because the car, the job, the house, they're nice, but they're all temporary. They can only be maintained through work. Example. Now, what kind of car do you guys have? Audi. And something broke on it. What was it, suspension or something?
Yeah, suspension.
Yeah. And how long was it out of commission?
Almost 2 months.
And how much was it?
A lot.
Yeah.
Welcome to the world. There's nothing wrong with that. Thank God you had the money, But that's the world. Who here owns their own house? Yeah. Have you had a leaky roof yet? Any of you had foundation issues?
Oh.
Plumbing? Always maintenance. And then you can have a $75 million house on the hills in Pacific Palisades. And guess what happens? Gone. Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That's what Job said. He's a better person than most of us. How dare you? Why me? I'll tell you why. We do not get what we want. We really don't even get what we need. Those people who say, oh, God always gives me just what I need. No. We get the inevitable results of the force of our past actions, not just in this life, but in prior lives. We are never actually a victim. So it does no good to blame other people for our circumstances. We want to be solution oriented. All right, any thoughts and questions? We could go into the laws of this world. We could spend a whole class, several weeks on it, but I don't want to go too deeply in it. But all this is implied in the person who gains a knowledge of Vishwa, a waking state reality. Next one.
Jim, I have a question. You
Please.
probably explained this to me before too, but I'll ask again. If what you really want is happiness, and your mind is constantly telling you like X will give you happiness, Y will give you happiness, and that's a habit pattern that we have. How do you just stop those thoughts? Because those will always be there.
They may not. So again, be a karma yogi. That's where we start. So if what you want, you act on it, can't help it. Krishna says everybody is impelled into action helplessly by the force of Prakriti, their nature. What can restraint do? So if you really want a baby, for example, I really want one, you act according to your nature. Nothing wrong with that. Doesn't mean you're going to get what you want. Krishna says, I am the karma phala data. I am the giver of the fruits of action. All we get in this world is work, never the results. So you act according to your nature in a spirit of selfless service to the best that you can. Always that fourth element. You've got to be willing to not get what you want. We have to let go of the attachment to the fruits of action. There's no other way. How do we do that? Usually by getting kicked in the teeth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
One of the things Swamiji used to do. Now, he was a great sannyasi, a great renunciate, and he taught renunciation. But then he would say, go after the world. Let it drop you again and again. Let it kick you in the teeth. He would laugh diabolically. Say it's the only way to kill the ego. So it's through our profound disappointment. So there's the way of the tantrikas and there's the way of the sannyasis. I had a student once who had, I think she'd been jilted again by another boy. And she was saying, well, I thought in Tantra you could have your cake and eat it too. You could go through the world, and satisfy your desires. And I said, yeah, that's absolutely true. But listen carefully. Tantra is the more painful path. The clearest example in our modern world is addiction and alcoholism. I don't want to give up drinking and doing drugs. And I'm going to ride this horse until I get close to jails, institutions, and death. Some people never recover in this lifetime. Until finally I get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Then when I get the connection that it's the drugs and alcohol that are causing the intense suffering, I develop the desire to be free from drinking. I develop the desire to be free from desire. That's the way of the tantrikas. The sannyasi goes, that dude's really suffering. I don't think I'm going to go down that path. Wow, I've got some heroin. It's so cool. God, it's the answer to everything. You want to shoot up? What if I were to offer you that?
I don't know.
Why not?
I don't want to suffer.
You sure?
Mhm.
Do you know this from experience?
No, I don't. But through other people's experience.
Uh-huh. This is the way of the sannyasi. That's called insight. So we don't necessarily have to bottom out on a desire.
Would you also do the practice of like flipping the outcome where, let's say you want that job really badly, and just to test whether you're actually attached to it, to say, oh, I may not get that job, and how do I relate to that outcome? And
That's a good practice.
then if there is this sort of fear or like, I guess, disappointment or some emotion, then that means there's something there that it's showing up.
And that's okay. You just walk through it. But if I'm suffering, if I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the klesha. I'm the one with the defilement. I'm the one with the attachment, the expectation, the identification. Always. It's never, ever, ever out there. Now, that doesn't mean they're right and I'm wrong. Notice I'm not saying that. The world and its people are just bananas sometimes. There's no question about that. Why? Because they're driven by ignorance. But that doesn't mean I have to suffer because of it. And then we're not getting into it too much with up. We'll get to it when we get to the silence. But in the end, self-realization frees us from fear. Nothing's going to ever harm you. You are birthless, changeless, deathless, always the same. And that being that you are is independent of the circumstances of the world. And when you finally realize that your swarup is ananda, your self-nature is the happiness that you're seeking, then the attachment to the world starts to loosen. no other way. This is why just attending class, you have to think about the process, mananam. You have to meditate. Till you have at least momentarily what Jesus called the peace that passes all understanding. Then the same passion that drove the mind into the world starts to drive the mind into the self. But it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Was this useful?
Yes, thank you.
Ego tells me I'm unhappy because I don't have what I want. Yoga tells me I'm unhappy because I'm wanting. It's the karma itself that is the suffering. What's it feel like to want something you don't have? It sucks. Yoga says there's no other suffering. What about if I have a broken leg? Okay, we'll put physical pain on the shelf, but that's not what usually afflicts us. It's all mental. All right, next one.
Swapnasthanasthaijasa ukaro dvitiya matrotkarshadu bhayatvadvut karshati havai jnana santiti samanascha bhavati nasya brahma vritti kule bhavati ya evam veda. He who is Taijasa, having for his sphere of activity in the dream state, is U, the second letter of Om, on account of superiority or on account of being in between the two. He who knows this attains to a superior knowledge and is treated equally by all, and finds no one in his line of descendants who is not a knower of Brahman.
Yes. Again, good salesperson. Here's the benefits of the product. So what does it mean to know about U, the second letter? Well, it's superior, meaning it comes after the waking state. It's subtler. I'm thinking the better example is that it's between the two. It's between the and the ba. So the deeper implication, this is not about dream analysis. U, the dream, stands for the subtle body and the subtle world. What is the subtle world? This is the world of our thoughts, our feelings, our memories, our dreams and expectations. So here, the implication is a yogi wants to make what is unconscious conscious. We want to have a clear understanding of our own psychology. Many of us act out, as the modern day psychology people say, meaning I act in the world on some syndrome and I don't even realize I'm doing it. So you have a fight with your partner and you tell yourself, I'm not angry, I'm a yogi. And then you slam the car door on his hand. What have you done? You've unconsciously done it. You've acted out. Or how many of us know somebody who's got a broken picker when it comes to relationship? They always choose the bad boy or the gal with problems over and over and over again. Why do you keep dating these people? Anybody know people like that? Or you met someone like that? Why do we do it? Oh, I've got such a terrible boss. They're so controlling. Oh, I'm so sorry. Is this the first time you've had a boss like that? No. How many bosses have you had that have been like that? All of them. Guess who probably has the problem? My favorite. You meet one asshole in the day, bad luck. You meet two assholes in the day, coincidence. You meet three assholes in the day, guess who's the asshole? So one of my favorite quotations comes from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. It's the first sutra in the second chapter. Tapas swadhyayeshwara pradhana kriya yoga. Tapas, austerity, swadhyaya. In the Raja Yoga tradition, it literally means self-study, but it means an inventory of my own psychological material. Ishvara pranidhana, trustful surrender to God. These three practices is kriya yoga, yoga in action. Karma is a completed action. Kriya is an ongoing action. So you take it from the inside out. The first thing we do is begin to inventory what our processes are, what our motivations are. This is one of the values of a psychotherapist. It's a very expensive out loud meditation in the presence of another person. It can be very valuable, but it's not the only way. Anybody here do journaling? That can be very valuable. But we want to have an honest appraisal of our character assets and our character defects. These are not sins in the Western sense. Oh, I'm going to be punished and go to hell. We're not talking about that. We're talking about ways of thinking and feeling that get in the way of our relationships with other people and our peace of mind. Of course, probably the biggest one is what I call paranoid self-observation. How am I doing? What do they think of me? Am I okay? Anybody afflicted with that one? See it for what it is. See it for what it is. Antidote for that one, turn your attention to God, turn your attention to serving other people. Do you have anger issues? Is that a klesha? Is that an affliction? Do you have fear? Oh, that's a big one. Fear is one of the things I think that activates all the rest of our character defects or kleshas. Most of us are just riddled with fear. Oh, the world's going to hell. We're all doomed. We're all doomed. And they are causing it. And we get huge reinforcement from that, from society at large. But it's not true. Now, here's one of the biggest ones. You know, oh, I've got anger issues. That's kind of sexy, you know, as a character defect. I lost, you know. I got to really work on that one. Yeah. I have self-pity. I spend the whole morning feeling sorry for myself. It's so unsexy. But many of us do. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. You spend the whole morning. I have a dear friend, and he's Jewish, and he has a Jewish mother. So he had a fight with his mom. She stalks off into her bedroom. About 10 minutes later, it's a true story. Goes in, knocks on her door. She doesn't answer. He opens the door, goes in. So she's kind of curled into a semi-fetal position on her side, facing the wall. And he says, Mom, what are you doing? She says, I'm reviewing my miseries.
Oh, God.
We laugh.
Yeah, not.
Or is she just a little more honest than the rest of us?
Mhm.
Do we have control issues? I used to joke with people, I'm a blind backseat driver with a poor sense of direction. I'm not making this up. But you decide for yourself. Spend time taking a look at your mental world. And then tapas. Tapas literally means heat. What is tapas? It's not standing on one leg. It's not staying up all night. It's not chanting the name of the goddess all night long. These are, you can do these things. But the effective tapas is to understand that I have a habituated flow of thought that doesn't serve me and doesn't serve the society. Am I judgmental? Am I selfish? Am I engaged in fear? Am I dishonest? Am I critical? And we turn the mind from one habituated flow of thinking into one that's more in alignment with the Dharma. Your Dharma means the path. Can I practice generosity? Can I practice forgiveness? Can I practice truthfulness? Can I practice straightforwardness? Can I practice tolerance? If I'm fearful, can I practice faith? That's our third one. Ishvara Pranidhana, trustful surrender to God. So we engage in what we can call thought replacement. How did all that negative thinking get in there? Habit. Huge portion of it. We just take the thought atmosphere of our parents and just hook the pronoun I on it. We just buy it, hook, line, and sinker. Or from the society, all from our culture or things like that. But we have to see them for what they are and then begin to turn the mind into a different direction. This is tapas. Why do we call it tapas, which is heat? Because there's resistance. Who's tried to break a habit and found it's really hard? St. Paul says, I do not do that which I would do, and I do that which I hate. Therefore, it is not I that do it, but sin that is lodged in my limbs. That was his way of talking about our vasanas, these deeply rooted tendencies. So we are dependent on the help. God as we understand God. And it doesn't matter what name or form you use. It can be to whom it may concern God. It can be Jesus. It can be Allah. It can be Lord Shiva, Krishna, the goddess. Doesn't matter. But we begin to see the limitation of our own willpower. We need to surrender. So to meditate on U is to become familiar with the interior world, the subtle world of mind. Now, basically, that's where our ignorance is, in the mind. So as we release these false ideas, these erroneous notions of the world and of self, this is a huge part of the process. Swadhyaya, self-study, here means self with a small s. Psychological inventory. And it's not all in red ink. You know, there's no point in having false modesty. Mali, are you a good manager?
I don't. We mean of people?
Yeah.
I don't manage people.
Oh, I lied. Okay. You manage people, right?
So indirectly, yeah.
Yeah. Who's managed people? You have. Are you a good manager?
No.
You know. Are you a good manager?
Hope so.
Yes.
Yeah. But you probably have some skill in it. You were successful pretty much.
Sure.
Yeah. So you know it's okay to say, yeah, I have this quality, and I'm pretty good at this. You know, that's humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the difference? Mm-hmm. So we don't want false modesty. You want an honest appraisal of your character strengths and character weaknesses. We work on them. All right, next one.
Hey Jim, I have a question.
Please.
What is your opinion about prayer?
Prayer is the raising of the heart and the mind to God. That's the dictionary definition. And in that sense, it includes meditation. The question is, how should we pray? I guess we can do this. So Jesus' disciples said, Master, teach us to pray. You come from a Christian background, don't you?
Generally, yes.
Generally. But this is good for all of us. So when the disciples said, Master, teach us to pray, Jesus said, in this manner should you pray. And then comes the Lord's Prayer. Now, most of us just who came up as Christians, we recited on Sunday at Mass or church, but what does it mean? It is formulaic. So the first thing that it says is Abba. In English, what's the first word? First word's our Father.
Our Father. Yeah.
But Abba means more than just our Father. A better translation is Daddy.
Mhm.
It
Like
is
Abba, I guess.
Abba in
Right.
Aramaic.
Right. I think like a lot of people call their fathers Appa, which is, I guess, in South India especially.
Yeah, it's funny how the words for mother and father are so archetypical. But the point of it is intimacy. Who here speaks a Romance language like Spanish or French or Italian?
A little bit.
Okay. In Spanish, that's the one I know the best. God is always addressed not as usted, but tu. Is it the same in Italian? Do they have a familiar and a formal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in English, thee and thou are the familiar form in English. You is the formal. Go read Romeo and Juliet. And Romeo and Juliet say thee and thou to each other. And they say you to their parents.
Wow. It's the same in the Quakers. They say
Right.
thee and thou to their
In
family.
plain speech, yeah.
Yeah.
But the point I'm getting at in the Lord's Prayer, as it's come to us in English, with all the these and the thous, hallowed be thy name, and all that sort of stuff. The import is God is the greatest friend. God is intimate and personal. God's not far away. Ultimately, we find that God is yourself. So the first thing that happens, our Father who art in heaven. So we meditate on and remind ourselves of the ultimate perfection of the infinite. In Sanskrit, we say Satchidananda, pure existence, pure consciousness, bliss absolute, omniscient, all-knowing, omnipresent everywhere, omnipotent, all-powerful, the same yesterday, today, and forever. This is heaven, not some place up in the sky. Hallowed be thy name. And again, in the ancient languages, name and nature meant the same thing. So we have a phrase in Sanskrit, namarupa. What's that mean?
Name and form.
Also means name and nature. What's your swarup? Swarup means what?
That nature.
Hallowed means holy, sacred. So we remember the nature of God is holiness. Then comes what I might call unification. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Right where the trouble seems to be, there God is. In the Sanskrit, we have these two scriptural statements that we have to reconcile. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. What's that mean?
Brahman alone is real.
Everything else is illusion.
Illusory. But then Chandogya Upanishad says Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. What's that mean?
All this is verily Brahman.
Well, make up your mind. Is it all illusion or is it all God? So what we need to deal with is our wrong understanding, our wrong perception of the here and the now, the phenomenal world. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Meaning, right here, right now, even if I don't see it, here is God's presence and God's perfect action. In spite of my opinion, the universe is unfolding as it should. Then, the next part is interesting. Oh God, please give me a little crumb of bread. Is that what it says? What's the language?
Bring me this day our daily bread.
Give us this day our daily bread. So bread here is a metaphor for what we need to sustain ourselves on all levels. And notice Jesus doesn't say, please, and he doesn't beg. He commands a law. And if you look at Jesus's healing ministry, he doesn't say, oh God, please raise Lazarus from the dead. And if you do, I'll quit smoking. He says, Lazarus, come forth. Take up your bed and walk. So the implication here is an understanding that we're dealing with cosmic law. In Sanskrit, we call this a sankalpa, a wish, a will, a thought, an intention, a desire. It's done in a quiet mind. And we don't ask for tomorrow's bread. I'm frightened, God. Give me a storehouse of bread so next year I'll be okay. No. Give me today what I need. Then what's the next phrase?
Deliver us from evil.
No,
No,
forgive us our trespasses
right.
as we forgive those who trespass against us. So what gets in the way of my life? My own kleshas. We talked about that. My own defects. Now, if you've been a yogi for any particular length of time, one of the things we begin to see is how stubborn many of our character defects are. On the 22nd, it will be 50 years since I first met Swamiji. What can I say? Still working. Just sadhu doing his practices. So through God's help, this constant surrender to the infinite. So forgive us our trespasses, and then we've got a job to forgive those who have trespassed against us. No yogi can live a life that's filled with deep resentment or regret. You have to make peace with all that. You may have terrible wounds from childhood or a failed marriage or a broken relationship. I don't know if you remember, it was years ago, where there's this fellow, I know his last name was Roof. I can't remember his first name. And he walked into, I think it was Ebenezer Church, and prayed with these people for an evening prayer session. White guy, then pulled out a gun and shot them all. And he left one person alive. Remember that on the news? And at the sentencing, there was a woman who had lost her husband and her son, I think it was. She's in tears. This is victim impact. And she says, I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. Because she deeply knew that she had to forgive or it was going to eat her alive. We don't forgive other people just for their sake, but for our own. So this is Jesus's, in one phrase, an understanding of karma. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Protestants say forgive us our debts, but it's not about money. The older word is trespasses. Let's see. Forgive us our trespasses, we forgive those trespasses. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So save us from the time of trial. Save us from those reactive parts of my mind that will lead me into behavior I'm going to regret. And remind me that I live and move and have my being in God. That's the deliverance from evil. Why? For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. I do not live in a universe that is doomed and scary, all horrible people, full of conspiracies. That's all rooted in illusion. I live and I move and I have my being in God. So that's how Jesus taught us to pray. Now, by and large, petitionary prayer doesn't work too well because it's rooted in a lot of misunderstanding. I'll tell you the prayer that almost never works. Oh God, please make Dad, give me the car so I can go out with Susie. And if you do, I promise to stop smoking. It doesn't work. And I'll tell you why. Oh, God, please. Do you have a neurotic God? Jessica, beg. I love it when you beg. Is that your God? Oh, I'm in a bad mood today. Leprosy! There's no such God. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Don't make your God in the image and likeness of people. It's the other way around. Oh, God, please make Dad give me the car. We want God to manipulate other people. We know better. That can be, oh, God, please don't let so-and-so die. Who are we to know what's best for another? Now, if another person asks us to pray, we do. And then what do? We think that somehow the universe is influenced by a bargain. Doesn't happen too much anymore, but 50 years ago, monasteries and convents were filled with people. Oh, God, if you save so-and-so, I'll become a nun or I'll become a monk. We make a deal, make a bargain. No, those prayers rarely work. Because they're rooted in false understandings of the infinite. Now, just your intention to remember that God's presence is right where the trouble is a help. I don't know if it's going to help the situation, but it will help you. And the more we understand how the laws of mind and action, cosmic laws, metaphysical laws actually work, the way in which we pray will evolve. It's a very good question. I hope I've given you a useful answer.
Very, extremely. Thank you so much.
Jesus was a good yogi. Very good yogi. And again, he didn't say repeat this prayer every Sunday. He did not say that. I didn't make this up. Look in the Bible. It says, in this manner pray ye. End quote. It's formulaic. This is what the elements of an effective prayer needs to be. And then, of course, if you have the faith to move mountains, big implication there. But have not love. You're just a sounding gong. And the word in the Latin is caritas, there for love. In the Greek, which is what scriptures are written in the Christian scriptures, agape, which means a selfless kind of love, a love that wishes only the well-being of the other. It's not transactional love. You do me and then I'll do you. All right, we spent the whole hour on this. Which mantra are we on for next week? We'll do month.
7.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om.